About 1:30, let's take a look at Biz News tonight. Dubai-based Alpha Time Group has announced its intention to buy 100% of listed Nairobi-based car dealer CMC Holdings Limited for $88 million. The move should help the car dealer introduce more brands beyond its current stable of Volkswagen, Ford and Case Construction, among others. It has been endorsed by 50.6% of the company's shareholders, including most of the company's top shareholders who have undertaken to sell their shares when the offer is made. Alpha Times Director of Corporate Development Marwan Shahadeh said the move was in line with the company's expansion that has seen it expand through strategic acquisitions beyond the Gulf Cooperation states and the Greater Middle East to encompass Southeast Asia and Africa. The first commercial flights between Juba and Khartoum by a South Sudanese airline commenced Sunday. The flight by the South Supreme Airline is essentially part of a cooperation agreement by the two countries to enhance their private sectors going forward. According to officials, the move is a sign of improved relations between the two countries and will further enhance ties for the benefit of their people. Both countries will convene an economic and commercial conference in Khartoum in October that will see the participation of the South Chamber of Commerce and Industry together with other business unions to work out a comprehensive cooperation program. Now, forensic audit on the allegations of corruption and embezzlement made by the United Nations about Somalia's central bank has concluded that the allegations were deeply flawed and unreliable. Forensic accountants from the American consulting firm FTI Consulting and a legal team from another U.S. firm found that the methodology and conclusions in the report did not necessarily support the allegations made in the report. Annex 5.2 of the Comprehensive United Nations Monitoring Group report alleged that payments to private individuals constitute the bulk of withdrawals from the central bank, while 80% of withdrawals from the Central Bank of Somalia are made for private purposes and not for running the government.
We also examined the allegation that the central bank is a slush fund for corruption. That's a statement that appears repeatedly in the UN Monitoring Group report. And they say that 72% of all transactions that have gone through the central bank during the administration of President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud have gone out of the bank to private people for non-governmental or corrupt purposes. We investigated that allegation very closely and found it to be completely incorrect.
The monitoring group never attempted to contact relevant bank officials or obtain records from the bank or finance ministry. Neither did the monitoring group attempt to interview Somalia's Accountant General, who is responsible for managing the accounts of the state and its ministries.
Multiple strikes have sprung up all over the South African economy just after the strike in South Africa's gold mining industry has ended. And as more industrial action hits other sectors of the economy, this time motorists are among those caught in the line of fire. Thousands of workers in the motor industry, including petrol pump attendants, are set for an industrial action over low wages. CCTV's Guy Henderson has the details.
In sheer numbers, this could grow into the largest strike there's been in recent weeks. 70,000 members, another 230,000 ununionised but legally allowed to join. A double-digit raise is once again the demand, and there seems to be very little goodwill left between employers and the union.
We're the only country where basically super exploitation, where apartheid colonial wage is an accumulation strategy. And I think right from Marikana to deodorant to the militant strike, workers are sending one clear message, that they are not going to accept super exploitation.
Petrol pumps are closed. That'll hit ordinary South Africans as the days go by, and the auto industry will be affected again. It's still reeling from a 3-week walkout on its factory floors that cost $70 million a day. This time it's car component workers that are downing tools. For BMW SA, a line appears to have been crossed. On Monday, it ruled out the possibility of expanding operations here on account of the labour environment. Economists say it's becoming a trend.
It's not that it's the negotiation with Labour that's a problem. It's the fact that Labour has become more militant and that strike activity has become the norm. And so when we analyze companies, analyze their performance, what we've noticed is that the increase in wages is not what causes the damage. It's the disruption to the work environment. In other words, as soon as you have a stoppage for a week or 2 or 3 weeks, that is what really hurts the company in terms of their financial performance.
Some relief for mining bosses, though, at least for now. A gold sector stoppage expected to last for several weeks concluded in most shafts over the weekend after just a few days. But the problems facing the wider metal sector are likely to surface again, as are deadlocks across several other sectors in the weeks ahead. But this strike is perhaps the most visible sign of the wider impact that this wave of industrial action is having on wider South African society. But long-term as well, we're starting to see signs of international business asking the question as to whether this worth. Guy Henderson, CCTV, Johannesburg.
All right, so let's take a look at how foreign investors are interpreting this situation in South Africa. Mariam Bamad is live for us in London. Mariam, good to have you with us. So despite a wage agreement with new members of between 7.5 and 8%, how are foreign investors interpreting this? Is it a win-win situation for the mining sector?
Well, for now, the wage deal will help both sides, but these ongoing strikes combined with falling gold prices can lead to gold mines closing and thousands of jobs being lost, of course. Now, there's a fine line here between sustaining production in the wake of a slowdown in market demand. Investors are also aware of rising costs with production, both for, of course, deeper extractions of gold and the instability we've been seeing because of these ongoing strikes in the last couple of years. But the strikes really hit the heart of the ongoing battle between mining companies and local communities, and it's where it's still a case of development versus fair compensation.
So, Mariam, we're seeing a growing list of strikes there in South Africa. Are these strikes deterring foreign financiers from investing in South Africa?
Well, investors who were often keen to finance giant miners like AngloGold Ashanti and Sibanye Gold have stepped back. You know, we're seeing this decline in overall gold performance. Of course, the world's major vehicle producers like Toyota, Mercedes, and General Motors have also felt the pinch despite the wage reform that we're seeing. The ongoing social unrest is very much causing some to shy away from investing in South Africa, especially with the government staying quite muted throughout these strikes. Now, this comes at a time when the auto industry alone is one bright spot in South Africa's struggling manufacturing sector.
All right, Mariam Bamad live there for us in London. Thanks very much for those insights. Just how beneficial has the BRICS partnership been for Africa? That was one of the questions raised when leaders from BRICS member countries met on the sidelines of the recently concluded G20 summit. Many experts now say the BRICS grouping is not working for the African continent, even as analysts begin to question its future. CCTV Sumitra Naidu takes a closer look.
When South Africa joined the BRIC grouping in 2011, the move was hailed as a step forward for the entire African continent. The 5 nations committed to strengthen partnerships with Africa, but early signs indicate that Africa may be at risk of missing out from potential benefits.
I don't think that the frameworks that are there, like the AU, like BRICS and other things, are fundamentally interested in the majority of the people, unfortunately. I think they serve the interests of the powerful.
But some business leaders are optimistic about the partnership. The BRICS grouping accounts for 16.8% of global trade, which amounts to $6.1 billion.
To increase the trade between African continent, they need to communicate by railroad, by roads, and even by airplanes, but especially by roads. We can't do business, I'm from Congo, and we can't do business with a country like Cameroon without the roads linking us to Cameroon.
South Africa's own trade with other BRIC nations was $2.6 billion in 2011. But South Africa is the most developed country in Africa, making it competitive with the BRIC countries. Infrastructure is improving within the continent, but it is still a long way off from making a significant contribution to trade growth.
The training differences among the African countries. The levels of trainings are not the same. We need to uniformize the training. And another trade barrier is the visas. We know it is not so easy, but we think it is important for the high commissioners to ease visas for businessmen.
Barriers to trade that already exist among African countries are further hampering trade with the rest of the world. Many South African businesses that are trading on the continent say that these barriers hamper the pace of development, and for Africa to progress, such challenges need to be addressed urgently. Africa, though, is slowly overcoming its own challenges. By 2015, a free trade area is expected to be established, combining 26 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa into one single market that could be worth around $2.6 trillion. Sumitra Nadu, CCTV, Johannesburg.
Are you watching BizAfrica? Let's take a break, but straight ahead. New world tipple when producers move to top new markets. Stay tuned, we have the details.
BizAsia. Asia means business.
Welcome back. In a bid to enhance credit information sharing in the country, the Kenya Bankers Association, in collaboration with the Central Bank of Kenya, has set up a project office known as the Kenya Credit Information Sharing Initiative. Credit providers in Kenya have over the last 3 years expressed great interest in the future of credit information sharing, given the mechanism's anticipated benefit to them, their customers, and the economy as a whole. The KCISI will oversee the mechanism's implementation among banks and the Deposit Protection Fund Board. The initiative was founded in August 2009 to coordinate the efforts of member banks to share credit information through licensed credit reference bureaus under the supervision of the CBK. And now to discuss credit information sharing in Kenya and the potential it holds for deepening financial inclusion and easing credit acquisition by individuals, we have in studio Mr. Jared Getenga. He is the project manager at the Kenya Credit Information Sharing Initiative with a mandate to coordinate the efforts of member banks to share credit information through licensed credit reference bureaus under the supervision of the Central Bank of Kenya. Thank you, Jared, for joining us. So is the Kenyan market ready for individual pricing of credit?
Yeah, the Kenyan market is ready. The essence of this project is to prepare the market so that we can begin to see borrowers benefit from their credit scores. And so we have done some work towards this end, and we think that it's time now to take a big leap in this area. In the past, credit bureaus weren't in existence, and indeed banks did not have access to the kind of information that would help them to classify their customers in a very objective way. We are getting there now. We have had for 3 years information being shared, albeit just the negative information. However, we think that we are now ready to begin the new phase of sharing all manner of information, the positive side of information that will help the lending market to grow much faster.
Now, Jared, the Kenyan credit market has been product-based. How will banks then manage to implement the individual-based model of pricing?
It hasn't been many banks because the model that we are using now has largely been about negative-only information, non-performing loan information. And so we wouldn't say that our market has been able to use individual kind of lending that is based on credit information. But this is changing now, effective in the next couple of weeks. we are beginning to share the kind of information that will assist the banks to be able to classify their customers on a risk-based kind of lending.
Now, with a lot of talk on credit referencing and information sharing, the inclusion of MFIs and DTMs, there still remain a bulk of unbanked population in the market. How do you capture those largely who thrive in the informal sector?
The credit information sharing mechanism will expand beyond the banks and the deposit-taking microfinance institutions in the next few years. Over the last 3 months, we did register an association of credit providers that will be open to all manner of lenders. And that way we'll be able to capture a lot more information that is available outside the banking and microfinance industry that will enable all kinds of lenders to access the kind of information needed to expand credit outside the traditional lending market.
And on the issue of identity theft here in Kenya, how will this problem be tackled?
The credit reference bureaus have now been linked to the IPRS, the government mechanism for checking identity information. And so as we move forward, we'll be able to liaise with the relevant government authorities to ensure that the identity information is well captured. And so before lenders actually give credit, the credit reference bureaus will be able to authenticate the identity information by checking with the government authorities.
And my final question to you is, how do we address the problem of financing for financing for production and not for consumption?
For production and not for consumption. Well, there's no harm really in allowing consumption kind of lending. It's only that we must avoid it being the dominant kind of lending. And so in order to avoid consumption lending being excessive in the market, the credit reference bureaus are going to help in this sense because they are going to provide the full scope of a customer's borrowing practices. And if they are able to demonstrate that some of the borrowing is especially from consumption kind of sources, the lenders are going to be well informed. And so the credit reference bureaus really are going to be the central point of having as much information as can be available to the lender.
All right, Jared Getenga, thanks very much for your time on BizAfrica tonight.
Thank you.
Well, it's not all doom and gloom in South Africa, though, where South African wine producers have set their eyes on capturing a burgeoning middle class as the traditional customer base, the upper class white market, dries up or becomes saturated. Recently, hundreds of winemakers from Cape Town traveled to Johannesburg Soweto Township to showcase their wines to a new class of young black wine drinkers. CCTV's Peter Wakaba with the story.
There are a handful of black-owned vineyards in the $3 billion a year industry in South Africa, but the number is expected to increase as the government tries to change apartheid laws that forced blacks off the land and into slave-like work at farms. The dominant trend has been white-owned farms with mostly white consumers, but slowly this is changing, and South African blacks are becoming the new target for wine producers.
The white market, which is called the traditional market, is saturated because you get new brands or new producers every day, but you don't get new consumers every day, you know. So we are referred to as the main market, you know, because we have the numbers, you know. So the only way to grow the market is to focus on the black market.
It is for this reason that wine connoisseurs gathered at the opening night of the annual Soweto Wine Festival held recently in South Africa. The festival has seen attendance grow along with the number of black winemakers and exhibitors. Last year, organizers say there were about 8,000 visitors.
It's exciting because the festivals, you can see they get bigger and bigger every year. So you can see black people are becoming more inclined to learning more about wine, not just consuming wine. And that's beautiful. Numbers don't lie.
This is the market that's growing. It's the market that's also expressive in terms of its taste. They're not, they're not stuck to old ways. They're willing to try new boundaries of taste. And we're extremely excited to be able to participate in the growth of this market.
The black population is growing at a robust pace, and as their economic position improves, the increasingly disposable income is very attractive to marketers. The consumers themselves have increasingly become more knowledgeable about wine in their own right.
I think more than anything, what caught my eye is the name itself. So because, you know, you'd expect French, you'd expect English names and all those kind of things. I mean, when you see Sesfile, it's something quite different and catchy.
Organizers say festivals like these are a good platform to educate new wine drinkers about the drink, adding that 35% of the attendees learned about wine for the first time at the show. Exhibitors also bring in their high-end range to try and impress the wine connoisseurs, who started by drinking sweet wines and are now moving into more matured varieties. Peter Wakaba, CCTV.
Now, for those of us who are fashion conscious, we understand that counterfeit clothes and accessories are generally available and easily identifiable. The same is not true for farmers in seeds, though. Farmers in Maputo, Mozambique, are having difficulties differentiating between the real ones and the fakes, leading to food insecurity and dampening large-scale production. Angela Coppola tells us more.
It seems that big seed companies and smallholder farmers are on the safe side, when it comes to fake seeds, that is, a scourge that is threatening large-scale damage and increasing food insecurity.
Fake seeds are actually a major problem because they create a lot of losses to producers. They actually siphon money that is even borrowed by the small farmers. And to make it worse, fake seeds actually target the vulnerables.
Big seed companies appear to understand the issues facing those smallholder farmers, though.
In Africa, most farmers plant with the rains. So that means they've lost that season. They've lost the income for that season. They've lost the investment that they made in buying that seed. And then they've lost trust. So they wonder next season, what will they buy?
Regulatory control and enforcement are cited as one of the bigger challenges facing NGOs who are trying to help farmers. But perhaps it needs a coordinated approach.
So there's the government to streamline regulations, and the agro dealers train the agro dealers on ethics. And in case of any problem, I think law should be such that whoever does that to a small farmer pays for it.
While smallholder farmers suffer losses at the end of a particular season, the big seed companies face a slightly different threat.
So building a brand it takes a while, but it can so easily be destroyed if somebody goes and then puts their own fake seed or substandard quality in your brand product and sells it as your brand. And that's what also happens. And that's a big disincentivization for companies that want to do the right thing.
While there are commercial considerations, the authorities generally aren't equipped to investigate and prosecute fake seed sellers. And it's not considered a priority crime in many countries.
Fake seed is an issue if you're one of the companies that is selling the proper seed. The problem is that many of the users of those seeds don't actually know what they're buying when they buy those fake seeds, and they don't know what the outcome is going to be. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV on the outskirts of Maputo.
Right, it's the first day of trading this week, so let's take a look at some of the major bourses we track for you in the continent. See how they fared today. We're seeing a mixed bag, really. Nigeria All-Share Index ending the day in the red with 0.08%. The JSE All-Share Index not doing as well, also down 0.19%. The Nairobi Securities Exchange, though, in the green with 0.29%. The EGX also ending the day in the green with 0.14%. So let's call it a day on BizAfrica. Thanks for watching. Back to you, Beatrice.
Penina, thank you very much indeed. The sports coming up next, your headlines.